Like the GOAT, Caitlin Clark, may be finally taking somewhat of a stand versus the nonsense that Stephanie White has been attempting to push upon her. We just saw Sophie Cunningham talk about Kelsey Mitchell potentially winning MVP and all of this stuff. It seems like everybody has forgotten the reason that all of the people are here, themselves included.
Caitlin Clark is officially done staying silent, and the shockwaves from what just unfolded between her and coach Stephanie White are currently rattling every single corner of the WNBA world. This wasn't just another player expressing a little post-game frustration or venting quietly behind the closed doors of a locker room. What we all witnessed was a full-throated, calculated statement that nobody inside the Indiana Fever organization could have possibly seen coming, and every person watching could feel the immense weight of exactly what it signified. The fan base has been practically screaming from the rooftops about this coaching situation for months, raising one red flag after another. Now, the woman at the very epicenter of this entire universe has finally made her position crystal clear for the country, and every front office paying attention. The GOAT, Caitlin Clark, is finally taking a stand against the nonsense that Stephanie White has been attempting to push upon her. When you see a cornerstone player, unequivocally the most must-watch and heavily marketed talent in the history of the game, actively pushing back against the very coach supposed to be unlocking her potential, the question isn't if something is wrong. The question is how much damage has already been done.
Might win MVP. Caitlin Clark was the odds-on favorite, tied with Asia Wilson to win MVP this season. The girl was fourth in MVP as a rookie. Y'all better get some act right and act like y'all know what the hell is going on around here and understand that this is the Clark Show, baby. This is the Clark Show. Don't get it twisted. Don't get it confused. Okay, we root for all of y'all, due in part because we are rooting for Caitlin Clark. And
the fundamental truth of this situation changes the entire dynamic of the franchise. What exactly has Stephanie White been doing inside that organization to so completely derail the 2026 championship dream before it even has a chance to get off the ground? It consistently feels like the people running this team keep forcing their biggest superstar, their golden goose, into these impossible, no-win situations that no player of her caliber should ever have to navigate. This is why Caitlin Clark turning her back, even symbolically, on Stephanie White changes everything. This is not a one-day story that's going to vanish by the next news cycle. It is the breaking point, the visible eruption of a toxic environment that has been quietly building inside that locker room for far longer than most people realize. The decisions made in the coming weeks will define the direction of this franchise for decades. And that raw energy is precisely what has been pouring out of the fan base ever since this season started to take its current, frustrating shape. This sentiment isn't coming from some detached analyst. It's coming from the people who buy the merchandise in record numbers and fill those arenas to absolute capacity night after night. They are doing it specifically because number 22 is on that floor, and what happened next would shock everyone.
Fans hate Stephanie White. Caitlin Clark fans do not like listening to Stephanie White. We do not like hearing Stephanie White. We do not like looking at Stephanie White. We don't like it when her arms are crossed. We don't like it when she's twitching. We don't like anything Stephanie White does. It's come to that point. Stephanie White could give us $100 and we'd be like, damn, this is all you're going to give me? Like, she can't do it.
But here is the question that has to be burning in the back of every viewer's mind right now. How does a coaching relationship with a fan...
We recently saw Sophie Cunningham talk about Kelsey Mitchell potentially winning MVP, and the basketball world had to do a collective double-take. Caitlin Clark was the odds-on favorite, tied with Asia Wilson to win MVP this season after finishing fourth as a rookie. For teammates to start publicly elevating other players into conversations about leadership and impact that statistically belong to Clark raises a massive, DME alarming question. What kind of internal culture has Stephanie White allowed to exist? It seems like everybody has forgotten the reason they are all here in the first place. Clark is not just another piece of the puzzle. She is the entire reason the puzzle exists. The fan base doesn't just dislike Stephanie White anymore. They hate the very sight of her on the sidelines. They don't like it when her arms are crossed. They don't like it when she's twitching, and they certainly don't like the alphabet activist energy that some fans feel is overshadowing the actual basketball. Stephanie White could give the fans $100, and they'd ask why she didn't give more, because the trust between the coaching staff and the people has been thoroughly obliterated.
The GOAT, Caitlin Clark, may be finally taking somewhat of a stand versus the nonsense that Stephanie White has been attempting to push upon her. We just saw Sophie Cunningham talk about Kelsey Mitchell potentially winning MVP and all of this stuff. It seems like everybody has forgotten the reason that all of the people are here.
So here is what every viewer processing this situation has to be genuinely wrestling with.
How does a coaching relationship with a passionate fan base deteriorate this rapidly? The trust hasn't just been damaged, it has been systematically dismantled. Every sideline expression is dissected, every in-game decision is torn apart by thousands of fans, and every press conference answer is picked apart for hidden meanings. When a fan base reaches this level of total disillusionment, there is almost no road back without dramatic, visible change. This hostility isn't just about one bad timeout call. It is the accumulated weight of decisions that work directly against the obvious strengths of the most talented player on the roster. When you repeatedly force a high-usage playmaker into rigid, restrictive systems, fans stop giving you the benefit of the doubt. They are done pretending that confidence in this staff is a logical thing to feel. And as this pressure builds, the person with the most to lose is the one player who single-handedly transformed the commercial identity of this entire franchise. The narrative surrounding this team is shifting in a way that feels deeply, deeply wrong. How does a coaching staff allow a culture to develop where the monumental contributions of their most irreplaceable player get minimized or redirected? What does it say about the leadership inside that building when the people closest to the situation appear to have lost sight of why the arenas are sold out? The answer is a catastrophic leadership problem that starts at the top and filters all the way down. Clark taking a stand is not a distraction. It is a 5-alarm signal for every decision-maker to wake up before the greatest opportunity this organization has ever had walks right out the door. Caitlin Clark didn't come to Indiana to be managed down or quietly phased out of her own story. She came to win and to build something that lasts. When she starts pushing back, it's not a problem for the franchise to contain. It's a reality check they can't afford to ignore. If the organization doesn't realign itself around protecting and elevating this singular talent, they aren't just making a basketball mistake. They are committing a betrayal of the millions of people invested in her success. And what happens next might just be the most exposed moment in the history of the league. We are watching a shift where the entire organizational identity is being tested. They are simply holding the team to the exact standard that Clark has already proven she deserves. Every questionable coaching choice feels like a personal shit show for those who have poured their hearts and wallets into this team. At what point does this disconnect become impossible to explain away? The truth is, it already has. Stephanie White's tenure is now being viewed through a lens of deep-seated distrust that colors every single move she makes. The air in that building is heavy, and the clock is ticking on a championship window that is being squandered by a rigid philosophy. This is the eruptive moment where the noise from the locker room meets the fire from the fans, and the resulting explosion is going to change the WNBA forever. Clark is the focal point, the engine, and the soul of this team. If the people in charge can't see that, they don't deserve to be in the building when she finally leads a team to the mountaintop. As we look toward the next set of games, the question remains, will the front office have the courage to make the decisive change the fans are begging for, or will they watch as the greatest asset in sports history grows increasingly alienated? The 2026 season was supposed to be a coronation, not a conflict, but as long as the coaching staff continues to treat the best player on earth like just another body in a rotation, the rebellion will only grow louder. Caitlin Clark has reached her limit, and once she moves, the rest of the world moves with her. This situation is far from over, and the very next move is going to be the one that either saves this franchise or burns it to the ground. Do you think Stephanie White is the one holding the fever back, or is the drama being blown out of proportion? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because we're reading all of them, and this conversation needs to happen. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button to to stay updated as this silent war in Indiana turns into a full-scale battle